Hi everyone, welcome to this video about drawing heads. And let's just start with the first lesson. So first I'm going to explain a bit about using shapes, and those are really important to draw heads. And a great way to practice is to follow along and practice all the things I'm showing here. Try to do the same thing and then try to do it in different angles, etc. I will explain it more in this video. So the head consists out of a sphere, a ball. So it's really important to learn how to draw good and shapes like the sphere. So this ball is in 3D. So if you're drawing a circle, it's flat if you draw it like this. And if you're adding these perspective guides, like this here, it adds depth to it. You can see the direction of it. Now it becomes in 3D space. You can see the angle of the shape. If we draw a cylinder, like this here, then we already can see the angle without the perspective guides. And you can add the perspective guides for some extra clarification. Sometimes I do that. It depends a bit on how long it is and what I'm using it for. So the third shape we're using is a cube. So drawing a cube here. And what you can also see me doing is that I'm drawing through the shapes. And I do that because if you don't do that, you can get wrong angles. So here you can see these lines in distance. And now we can see all the angles of all these surfaces. So here we really need those perspective guides. Here you can add them. Here it's not that necessary. And of course we can divide it to get all those points. But I'm also drawing through these shapes. For example, if I have this cylinder, so this is the side you almost don't see, but you can still see I'm drawing this whole circle, and that helps with drawing correctly, because if you don't do that, you get these too sharp angles, or you get shapes like this. And I'm exaggerating it a bit to clarify it. And if you're drawing these shapes besides each other, and you're just doing like this, drawing this cube here, then you're going to make some mistakes. So it's better to draw those shapes through. So if you're drawing here, draw these shapes through each other. That will help getting better perspective, etc. And then of course later you can erase them, and then you can make your final drawing on top of that. And what I'm also showing here is that if you have this cylinder of this sphere or ball, you can also transform it a bit to make it a pinda shape or something. You see, and you can add these perspective guides to get this round feeling. And this is something you can practice. So if you're new to drawing, I would really recommend practicing. Take your sketchbook or anything where you can draw on, or in your PC or on your tablet. Doesn't really matter. I really like sketchbooks for these type of practices. And you can fill a whole page with all these different shapes. So maybe first draw the shape and then add the 3D perspective guides to it. That will really help you with drawing heads and way more. So gesture, what is gesture? The gesture is, it shows the energy of the pose, and it helps give your drawing energy and meaning. So for example, you start this not really about gesture drawing. I have a video about that separately. But with gesture, you start, what is the story? Is it like story? And then 2, how to draw that in a line. For example, if someone is running, you're making a line like this, and then you're drawing these shapes. I just showed how to draw ball, cylinder, again another ball, and now I'm doing really rough and not that great. And then maybe here a cylinder, a ball, a cylinder. But you can see that these shapes are following this line. Maybe here, a ball. So I'm following that line, and that creates movement, because or else your characters can get really stiff. So here you can see that. Draw a line and draw these shapes that are following this line. I think in the next image there is an exercise for that. Yeah, and this is also something I would recommend for, yeah, that's good for everyone to practice. First draw a line, maybe like this, and then draw all these different shapes, like this cylinder, or this ball, or this cube. Again, a cylinder going down, or this cube, following these shapes, and that helps you understanding how to draw these shapes in space. And once you can do this, then you can draw environments, but you can also draw characters in poses with the action line. So that's a really good exercise. And maybe it feels a bit tedious, but it will really help you understanding that 3D space more. So now we're going to the fun part, drawing heads. Let's make a new layer. So the head, you can basically divide the head in 3 parts, like a ball, a cylinder, and you can see I'm adding a bit of these, because it's not super straight, and a mask. So it's almost like a plane that's going to one point, the chin. It's going around a bit like this. So it's a bit flatter actually, but now this is fine. And then making the circle in the middle, adding this line here. So this line helps with showing the angle of that neck. So if you combine these 3 shapes, you get the basic of a head. And actually for cartoon drawing, that's maybe all you need when you're sketching. So with the cranium, if we're drawing this shape first, drawing this guide here. So it's like taking a knife and cutting off the sides of the head here, so that you have these sides taken off, like I'm showing here. Then this is quite flat, but this is round. So this goes straight down, and this is round. Maybe you see it a little bit here. So now we have that. And now in the middle, you can add that mask that is going like this. And we can add that cylinder. And I will show more about these steps later. But I just want to show how to construct the head out of these shapes. So you can practice doing this and try to think about how to, that you can take a knife and cut off parts, or you can add another shape and combine it like I'm doing here. So when you have a ball, you can add this cylinder like this to create this shape. Or you can take this cylinder, make this part smaller, then make this a bit curved, then erase that. So basically with a ball, a cube, and the cylinder, you can make any shape you want. And yeah, go practice. That's a great practice to try drawing crazy shapes. And that's really useful. So here, again, I'm showing how to draw. So start with a ball like this and add these perspective guides like this here, taking off the sides. So you have something like this. Adding the mask. And adding the neck. From the side, start with a ball. Make a line going down, like this. Adding another line from the other side, going like this. Make a cross in the middle of the circle. Connect this part to this line. And then you can erase this part a bit. Make this here. Create this mask here. And going a bit like this. So now we have the hairline, the mask. So now we have this facial part. And now we can draw a line going through here. And a line going through here. And make this line like this here. So you can erase this a bit. And then we can draw in this shape here. And a shape here. Make this circle going around. So this line here and there. So these two lines coming from this and here. So that's a nice flowing way to get those lines there. So and you can also use that method I just showed with the side line with this 3/4 view. So drawing this ball here, then draw this line, just going down over the shape, and then draw a line from this side, draw a line from this side. You can erase these parts. Then you can take off these sides. And then erase it again. Now we can take the middle, going straight down here, going here, like this here, going down like this, and going around the head. So now we have this head shape with this mask. And this is the basic of the head. And this approach can also help it draw in the head in different angles. So like let him look up, or let the character look down, even more down, or slightly up, or like this. So it's basically drawing this ball shape and then drawing it in this angle. Then drawing here this side. And make this straight and go around and here. Then here. So what I would advise you is to start practicing. So maybe you can first practice this, and then after that you can start practicing it in different angles. And I will talk a bit more about it later, but basically what you're doing is first you determine the angle with this ball, like this here. Or maybe if you want to let him look down, you do this, then you're drawing this angle downwards. Then that can help in looking it down like this. But later I will show a bit more about drawing the angles. For now, the most important thing is to learn how to draw the head in these shapes and trying to get used to that. So let's start with this one. So what I'm showing here is that you're using these basic shapes of the head, and then you can transform the shapes to however you want it to look like. And that's really useful when you're drawing more cartoony characters. So when you're drawing the head, like this, what we used to do, but you can take the mask and you can make it really long, like this here. And then here, giving this neck. Or you can take this head shape and you can make this jaw really fat. Like this. Then make this neck, giving this neck a different proportion. So you can really play around with those proportions. And you're doing that by squashing and stretching shapes. So you can also make this head shape, making it like this. And then making that mask something like this. Go ahead, play around, make a couple of crazy heads like I did here. Try to see how far you can go and how crazy you can go. And maybe you can start by trying to draw these heads first. So here I'm showing some different angles of that head shape. Again, with first drawing the ball in an angle, and then adding all these steps onto it. And here you can also see how the neck is going. So the mask is basically this shape. And when we turn it, we're now looking onto it. But if you're turning it like this, you would see it like this here. And you can practice that by watching at these ones. And when we're looking, it looks a bit like this here, what I'm showing here. So this shape. And a great way to do that is to look at pictures. Maybe you can make a picture of yourself from an angle of your head. So head construction, and now we're going to adding all the facial details. So actually, let's start with this one. So let's just start with drawing this head shape. So making a line in the middle, going down and to the side, and then just keep going, making a line in the middle here, adding this mask, going down here, here, and taking these sides off, and adding this shape here and then there. You can just do it really roughly. Now I'm also not that precise because I don't want to take too much time for it, and make the hairline. It's a bit lower than this part, somewhere here. And then create this mask. You can do it like the cheeks I did here, or just like I'm doing here. That doesn't really matter that much. And now we can divide this part in 3 parts, more or less. I'm not always that precise, but that's, however, that's also, you can be as precise as you want, but trying to do that in 1/3 of that face. So start with adding a basic shape here for the forehead. And this is also quite interesting if you're doing 3D art, that you're trying to think in all those shapes. So here we have this shape. Now we can add the jaw shape like this here. And adding this extra shape here. And adding the nose here. And as you can see, I'm using these really basic shapes here to draw this head. And you can follow these steps to get that. And here you can see the shapes I'm using this. And the reason why I'm using these shapes is that it makes it easier when you have to rotate the head, or when you have to design a character that looks a bit different. For example, yeah, there's also something I can show. So here we have this. Now we can erase this a bit. And now on top of that, you can add the eyebrows and add the eyes and the nose, the mouth, and etc. So try it out, and maybe you can try drawing different heads. So the reason why I'm using these shapes a lot is that it makes it easier to rotate around, just like I've shown earlier, that you have these basic shapes like a cube, etc., and you transform them a bit and they're still quite easy to rotate around. And that makes it more manageable to do those kind of things. It's basically the biggest trick I have. So the head construction. So basically I'm showing that here, that same head shape, but then in different proportions. So let's make this guy. So here you can see this ball shape. And then I'm adding here this jaw and then this neck. You can really see that I'm really transforming these shapes here. And then you can draw in that forehead, like this here. And then this nose, like this here. And then these cheeks, like this. And then this ear, like this here. So, and this is an example, but this is how I often sketch. Now you can start adding on top of that these shapes. And you can adding these shapes as much as you would like. Sometimes I'm skipping them because they're all already in my head. I'm thinking of it when I'm drawing the direct design. But it really helps to, and that's the thing I didn't really talk about in this video. Maybe you've seen it from other videos from me or somewhere else. But I'm drawing on top of these shapes. So if I have this ball, and I'm adding this eye or something, I'm going around the shape. So I'm going around like the shape like this guide. So it follows the surface of that shape. So yeah, here you can see there's all these different shapes as well. You can look in the ebook for more information about that. So let's go to this one. So here's basically what I'm already showing. So I've already showed this one a couple of times. So I just want to take this this head shape, make it a little bit bigger, turn the opacity down. And I'm using Adobe Photoshop, but you can use any software you want for these kind of things. It's just I'm used to using Photoshop. You can use Procreate or you can use your sketchbook. And I would really advise to using your sketchbook for these kind of things, because you can't, it's so easy to make mistakes digitally in Photoshop or something, and then press Ctrl Z or erase it easily. And in your sketchbook, there's a bit more pressure to do, and be a bit sketchy. It's okay to be rough, especially when it's sketches. You can always go over it and fix it. But drawing really roughly helps getting better drawings. So here, drawing this head. So drawing on top of these shapes, that makes it a lot of easier. And here in this one, you can see I started with these basic ones, and then I added more geometry to it. And that helps creating more realistic characters. And I'm not that interested in drawing super realistic, but sometimes I do this to study, because even when you're drawing cartoony, it's good to study realistic a bit, because there we're getting our inspiration from. And also I'm using a lot of reference when I'm drawing. So for this head, I also looked up some images of male heads to draw from. But here you can see how I'm then drawing on top of these shapes. So it's basically, and then you can also see where I come up with these shapes to draw these heads. So here, adding this here, and then here, drawing these eyes. And there are a lot of these tutorials online about drawing these heads. You can see that people already started to draw like this a long time ago, using these kind of shortcuts and shapes to remember how to draw the head. So maybe you can practice that. Start with drawing these shapes and then adding more complex shapes to it, and then adding the final lines. So what's also interesting, maybe you can take a picture of your own head. So if you have a photo, and then bring it in Photoshop or anywhere else and trying to make the shape, and then divide, look where that is, and divide, and then you can see, oh, the nose is here and the eyes are here, and etc. So that is what I did here. You can see all these lines for the positions, and sometimes they do change a bit depending on the head. So don't take them too literally, but it can really help. You can see that these eyes are in the middle, and then we have this part where the mouth starts. It's also in the middle. So this is also 1/4, 1/2. So you know that the nose a little bit above that. So that can help with getting the proportions right of the head. And you can really play around. You can also take these take this and maybe you can make this of this hairline really big, then these eyebrows here, and then these eyes maybe also small, and then this nose really low, and then these lines like this. So when you're drawing this character, so this hairline is really low, and then we have this line, and here these eyebrows, maybe these eyebrows are like this here. So you can, I would really advise you to just play around a bit with these proportions. Maybe this now looks a bit silly, but I hope you can play around with these proportions. And the more you go crazy, the more cartoony they become. You can get some interesting head shapes with that. So let's move quickly on it. So drawing the skull, and it can really help to learn how to draw a skull. Maybe it's good to take your sketchbook and draw the skulls first in a regular view and then maybe in different angles. So maybe you can use these steps to draw the skull. So again, starting out with a basic shape like this, and then adding this middle line here, and then adding this shape here, and then this line here, and then you can start drawing in all the details. So maybe take off the sides of that skull, and then draw in the eye sockets, and then that hole for the nose, and then here, then here. So drawing on top of these shapes, and that is how you learn to draw. So always start with, especially starting out with construction, and then save details for last. And once you know how to do this, then try to draw these kind of shapes. It's really interesting how the jaw moves. So here we have this rotation point, and the mouth goes up and down there. And it doesn't go, so you can see it rotates, and sometimes the head goes backwards as well. So that is how naturally the head works. So when you're drawing a cartoon character, you can see how crazy these skulls getting. So how big this jaw gets, how small this jaw is getting, how big this head is becoming, etc. So here, again, the skull, but then in different angles. And starting out with these basic shapes makes it really easy to, or easy, it stays hard, but it makes it more easier if you're starting out like with these shapes. And then you can add in all these other lines on top of it, and you're just following these guides. Maybe you're starting really rough like this. So sometimes I start really rough like this to get a bit of the feeling, and then I erase it a bit and I go over it. Also looking down, and it would be really cool if you have something like this skull at home or something that you can hold it and view from different angles and see what's happening with when you rotate it in those angles. So also the mouth, the part where our lips are on top of our teeth, isn't flat, but it's round. So it's really interesting to draw this ball on top of this shape. Here you can see it, and it works really well. And you can see this row of teeth is really going around it. And here, so it's basically like a ball. It's a bit less rounded, so this is actually a bit pushed, but it's really clear that our mouth wraps a bit around it. Feel on your own face how that goes. So more skulls. So one trick I really like is that when you're drawing the head, for example, here, and then you're drawing here this jaw on top of it, like this here, and then you're taking these cupcakes out of the head, and those are, then you have the eye sockets. So it's basically like you're taking these cupcakes out of the head here and there. And inside those shapes, you can draw in the eyes, like I'm showing here. And that our eye sockets are protecting our eyes, a bit like I'm showing here. So what I also want to show is, so this is more like my natural style or how I draw. So here we have these skulls, and here adding this, and make this eye sockets here, making these holes into it. And then think of it as these masks. So maybe you've seen the movie Incredibles or any other superhero movie, and there these characters have these kind of masks. So try to think of that when you're drawing your characters. If you're adding this mask, that helps with creating the eyes on top of it, because our eyes are protected by our eye sockets. So, and again, feel it on your own face. And it really helps also with where do you put the eyebrows. It's on this edge of this mask. Here you can also see this mask. So you can actually make this eye mask here. And it works really good. And it really helps me with the position of the eyes and the eyebrows and the cheeks. And also that you're drawing this eye is sometimes the eye is a bit behind the nose, and that's because of they're a bit sunk in. So drawing the eye. So again, like with a lot of stuff, start with a ball, make a middle of it, and then maybe you can start by drawing a line like this, and then a line like this. So it's actually wrapping around this ball. So like you can see here, it goes around, it follows the shape of the eyeball. And if we look at our eyes, we can only see a small part of it, and you don't see every part of the head, of the eye. You only see this fraction of it. So here, drawing the pupil with the iris. And most of the time, the iris is covered by one of her eyelids. And let's draw in this part here. So in here you can see it. So here's our eyelids are going like this. But here, this part of the eyeball is hidden. And actually you see this part, and I will show that a bit here later. But this part is going around, and this part is hidden. What can help to draw this is to make these lines going here, and then you know where the eyebrow is, like this here. You can follow these lines. So, but I'm also showing that step by step here, so you can practice that drawing there. So drawing this eyeball. So drawing head on an eyeball in space. So here, and it's going looking, yeah, that way. So now we're basically following the same steps as the front view of the eyeball, but then here. going a bit around the shape. So like this and there. And then maybe I've drawn it a bit too big. Maybe making it a bit smaller like this here. And drawing these shapes are also following the shape of the eyeball. And drawing the iris with the pupil. And then drawing the eyebrow on part of that, on top of that. So that is how I draw the eye in perspective. And so let's go a bit on this. So this is especially important if you want to paint it and etc., because that's how light works on the iris. Here you can see that we have our lens, so the light is going through it. So that's why often when the light is from the top, the downside of the iris get lightened up. But I'm telling more about it in my painting book. But it's interesting to know. And here you can see, and that's also why anatomy is even important when you don't draw realistically. But then still it's useful for animation to know a bit about, or animation art or concept art, to know a bit about the human anatomy. At least understand it. You don't have to know it out of head like a doctor. But to understand or have a grasp can really help. Also how the eye rotates. So the eye, here we have these muscles on the side of the eyeball that helps rotate it. These eyelids are on top of it. And here we have these muscles, and you can feel around your eye. You can feel that these muscles are here a bit thick, but then you can really feel this edge of your eye socket. You can really feel this band, this muscle around your eye and going, and on a place where it's thick and not thick. And oftentimes you can feel your skull clearly here, and you can feel that there's a lot of flesh around that edge. It's a thin layer all around the eye. So again, basically what I just showed here is to draw the ball and then draw these eyelids, draw this pupil, and then you can start drawing on top of it. And also from the side, you can also clearly see it, that you have this, this eyeball, then going around here, and then here. So it's like this here. So you can also see that you only see this part of the eyeball. And using this ball can also help it in drawing it in directions. And then you can also see how it turns around. So draw this ball in an angle. And then draw these lines that are going around this eyeball. And then on top of that, you can draw this pupil, this iris, and etc. Then you can start drawing on top of that. So it's basically just taking all these steps, and that's also why it's important to first learn all those simple perspectives, like those front or side perspectives, and it helps you with drawing these more difficult angles. And also that's why that earlier exercise I gave with drawing all the shapes in different angles can really help with drawing these kind of things, because maybe this, to draw this feels really complex, but you can really make it yourself easier when you're first starting to practice drawing those first lessons with drawing those cylinders and those balls and those cubes. That can really help you a lot by drawing these shapes. So more eyeball training. So I think I've already shown this. One thing I want to tell about that is if you're drawing a ball, the most easy way to draw an eye is drawing a ball and then draw these eyelids on top of it and add the pupil. And that makes a really simple way to draw the eyes. Perfect for storyboarding. Here you can see a bit of the anatomy of the eye. So I'm breaking it down in a couple of shapes, and here a lot of times you have this, yeah, it is, I don't even know if it's fat, but you have this tissue here around the eyes. It's also again protecting your eyebrow of your eye there. Don't draw your eyes super straight like this, but go around the face, and that's what I'm trying to explain here. So these eyes have a bit of a curve here. So when you're drawing some eyes, try to draw this this arrow, then at these eyes, following this line. Don't do it too much, but just give it a little bit of curve. Also, the distance between the eyes is one eyeball. And when you look at that in a 3/4 perspective, then these eyeballs overlap each other. Overlap. Overlapping is when something is in front of something else. So if you have two balls, and this ball is covering that other ball, this is called overlap. So drawing the nose. Yeah, let's start with this step. And I think that's really interesting to first draw a circle, then draw another circle, draw the shape up, erase this a bit, and then you can draw these sides here and here. And now we can build on top of that. And drawing these balls is easy, and now we can add all these more complex shapes. So maybe you can look up a photo from a nose and try to follow it in these, drawing the nose in these kind of steps, and it will really help you with learning how to draw this nose. Or drawing it from the side, draw a ball, draw a shape here, draw a shape here, a shape here, and then you can draw this nose here like this. So you can see that this part is bulges out a bit. And here you can see I'm adding a bit more geometry, and I'm always using these kind of lines to draw things from different angles when I'm stuck or something. And I will show that later a bit more about that. Here for drawing this this nose, basically you can think of it as a Minecraft nose or something like this box. And if we divide this box in 3 parts, then you basically have the construction of the nose. So here we have this part. And you can play around with the proportions of this. So the proportions are the sizes of these shapes. So here, then adding this shape here. And then going in the middle, around here. And then you can play around with those sizes. So maybe you want to make this really short, this part. So I mean this green part. And then make this really big, the red part. And again, make this really maybe stick out. I'm going really crazy. But maybe you can play around with drawing these noses in different angles, following these steps. I think that's a great exercise. Maybe try some different angles as well. So here I'm showing it how to draw it in a prism. So here you can first draw this prism. So if you're following these steps, it makes it a bit easier to draw it in difficult angles. And then draw these shapes on top of it. And I will always like to draw these shapes first and then draw inside those shapes. Also for when drawing the nose from the up, you can draw this shape, and here this line goes like this here, like this pyramid. And then you can draw in the nostrils, nose holes, and then maybe this curve here, and erase it a bit, and now you can draw on top of it, like this here. So that can help with drawing the nose from difficult angles, but also from the downside, and etc. So first determine your angle, then draw this prism on top of it, and then draw the nose on top of it. And here it's funny because here you can see that shape of the nose with rectangle. And that's what I'm using here to draw that nose in different views. So drawing the ears. So the ear is really a funny thing, and every ear is again really different. So what I like, maybe you can look up, maybe you can make a picture of your own ear, or find it on your favorite search engine. Draw a box and make a grid in that box. Maybe divide it through half, through half, through half, through half. And in later anatomy tutorials, I'll show more about it. And also place it on top of the photo and maybe figure out where all those landmarks. Maybe here and there. And again, all ears are different, but basically it's this kind of shape. So you can start like this here. And then you can add all these details like this here. So you have the big shapes, and then you make these smaller tubes in the eyes. But look up some pictures on on the internet about different ears, or look at friends or family for different ears. Also, a trick I like to use is making this shape first. So making this 3D shape first, and then draw this ear on top of that shape. So maybe this is a bit difficult to do at first, but maybe you can try practicing this shape until you got it. Also, another one is drawing an S shape, and then erase that a bit, and then draw this line on top of it. Also, again, think about the 3D-ishness, and then draw this shape on top of it, like this here. Then erase it a bit, and then connecting it by the final lines, and then you have an ear from the back. But then I'm using this cylinder kind of shape. And here you can see me, it's drawing the ear in perspective, and here as well. So again, it helps a lot by first drawing a plane in perspective, and then maybe make a box out of it, and then draw these, following these same steps as you would do with the regular shape. And then maybe try to draw. And here you can again see why I find it important to learn how to draw all these kinds of different shapes in 3D space, to draw the ear and etc. So drawing the mouth, I already talked a bit about. So the mouth isn't flat, but it goes around the mouth, or around the skull, like I'm showing here. So this is wrong. This is too flat, and this feels more 3D. And you can also see in these lips also a bit more of a round shape. And that's why I like circles a lot. They also already have a bit of the feeling of 3D-ishness already. It's a flat shape. There we can also feel, it reminds of immediately about a ball. So first draw these 3 balls, then draw a line, a curve going like this. You can add these curves here. And now you can add these shapes here. And then 2 shapes here. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes that forms the mount. And that works really well for me. So now you can also turn that around by adding those 3 balls, getting those shapes done, making this part here, making 1, 2 shapes of that there, and adding those shapes here. And now you can erase this and draw on top of that. And again, if you want to take a bit slower, you can follow the ebook drawings. And that's also a thing. If you're a bit stuck or something, try contact me through the, maybe you have my email, or maybe you can try to contact me via Instagram or any other social media, and I'll try to help you out. So those are those steps. And let's draw this with this ball. So this is the ball that I used on the skull. So when you've drawn the skull in a difficult angle, you can use that to draw this mouth like this and this, and then drawing these, following these lines. So this upper lip is overlapping this under lip, and then you can maybe you can erase it. Then you can draw these shapes on top of it, this heart shape here. Then here, these shapes here. Because I thought about this ball and taking the shape off, what you get is basically an heart shape. And then adding these shapes here. Erasing it again. And then you can make these shapes however you want. But more or less follow those shapes to the extent you want. So here with this shapes also might be interesting. Make this curve and then make a line going like this. Then make this other lines. So first, again, starting with these really basic shapes, and then erasing it a bit, making this heart shape here, drawing on top of that and following those shapes and curves to get that right. So the mouth. Yeah, I already talked a bit about this, but here you can see this a bit clearer. So the mouth rotates open when we laugh or something, or when we're eating. It doesn't go down or up like this, but it moves backwards. Also, the mouth goes around the face. And so our cheeks and our mouth is from soft tissue, but our teeth are really hard. So that's why I'm drawing it like these shapes. And that can really useful to, when you're drawing the mouth, it can be useful to first draw these kind of shapes to get the teeth correctly, because they don't move or squash or stretch that much like the mouth, like I'm showing here. So here you can really see this really stretched or pulled down. And here you can see this tissue, this cheek gets pulled and gets squashed. So try to notice that. Look in the mirror and see what's happening with your cheek when you're pushing it down, and try to draw that. And here you can see the muscles, and a lot of times the muscles going around it. And yeah. So I don't know all the muscles out of my head, but it's good to look up some pictures from muscles and study those. You don't need to know them out of head, but it can really help with getting a better understanding of it. So drawing the hairline, I already talked a bit about that. So it's a bit below the top of the head. And then on top of that, you can add these shapes of hair. So what I'm doing here is drawing this this head here. So a beautiful head. So the hairline is like this. So when I'm drawing hair, I like to use these basic shapes. So let's draw in so basic shape like this here, and a basic shape like this, and maybe a shape behind the ear is going over the shoulder. So I'm trying to think in those really basic shapes. It can be really rough like this first, then erase it, and then you can make it pretty. And it's just a bit of practice and following these shapes. Yeah, here I'm showing some different hair types. Again, using basic shapes. Maybe you can try that out. Look up for some pictures of crazy hairstyles and try to break them apart in simple shapes. Try to see if you can divide them in three simple shapes. So the neck. So, and I will talk a bit more about it in future anatomy lessons, but you can see these different muscles that I broke down in easy to follow steps. So let's just draw in, let's just, for sake that I don't have to draw that whole thing again. So let's put that here and make this a bit lighter. So I'm adding a muscle here. How's this muscle called? The sternocleidomastoid. Let's add that here, and let's add the sternocleidomastoid again here. And then we have the trapezius, that's from the back to the clavicle. And then we have the scolnus, that's here. And then we have this smaller muscle that's going here. And most of the time, this is enough. There are more muscles, but you rarely see those every time. That is most of the time I'm using for drawing the neck of the character. And of course, your character doesn't have to be that muscular. It can also be like this. And when your character isn't that muscular, you probably only see these lines, right? So try to think about, try to watch it. If you're watching people, try to see if you can recognize those muscles, and how does skinny guy look versus a really muscular person. So drawing the skull in different angles. Yeah, I find this also really interesting, that if you're making a box like this here, and you're dividing that box like this, and dividing that here, and then going around to here, then making this mask here. So here you can see all those landmarks, basically by just dividing these kind of shapes. And that can also help it draw it in different angles, because when you know how to draw the side and how to draw the front, you can use that to draw these perspectives, to combine them. Then you get these landmarks. And that can also, again, helping that with different angles. So in this case, you can use this method and then try to first by drawing this box. And this maybe can take a lot of practice, But then you can start drawing in these different angles on this. But it really helps me to start first draw this box and then add all these shapes. So again, what I just told about using the ball to help with difficult angles or a cube and draw these different heads. So try to practice drawing this head and then try to draw it in different angles. Maybe you have a Rubik's Cube or something and try to make some pictures of it from different angles. And first draw that Rubik's Cube from the different angles. And then draw in those cubes, draw those heads. And try to stay consistent with different perspectives. Here I'm showing a little trick that when you're drawing this head here, with the eye here, the nose. For example, if we have this head and we rotate it, and we're drawing these guides here, then you can figure out how does that look. How is the bottom of the nose is here. So that would look something like this. Then the eye would be here. So maybe the eyelid here. So the mouth would be here. And then the chin would be here. So something like this. And then the ear would be here. So using these guides can help you with drawing it in difficult angles. So that's a great practice. So then you're getting used to how to draw it in these difficult angles. And here you can see all these different heads drawn with basically this, these steps. So let's draw a few of them. So here, try to, maybe it's a good practice to take these drawings and try breaking them down in those shapes I shown earlier. And here you can see how I played around with that. And this is actually a bit more how my sketches look more first. You can see I really loosely go over the steps I just showed. Drawing in these heads, or maybe having this ball, then drawing in this head shape, going around like this here. Then here adding these eyes. Then adding this hair here, ear, then this mouth. And here. Or let's see. Let's do this side profile. Let's draw a ball. Let's draw a nose. So sometimes when I like to sketch, I let those rules go a bit. And I just start drawing for fun. But because I'm practicing all those measurements before, you're still doing that automatically, some of those things. And that's why it's so important to do those kind of practices. And this is a bit to see how I sketch. But what I would recommend for you is maybe break a couple of these sketches down with these kind of shapes. And maybe you can follow these steps to draw this character's head. Here I really exaggerated. This is not normally how I draw, but I hope this can really help you getting a better understanding of drawing the head. Maybe I can show this head, how to draw this head. So starts with a ball and going to the middle of it. Then adding this cheek here. Then maybe this ear. this nose, and this mouth here, then these eyes, and you can think of this mask again. So this eye is going here, a little bit behind it nose, putting this eyebrow front because that eyebrow is protecting the eyeball, and that's neck. So this stylized version has a really thin neck. And then the hair. So really start with the basic shape first, a bit like this. So I'm trying to get that flow, that gesture first. And then going down like this here. And then here. And then like this. So, and now you can start, now you have this. You can erase this a bit. And now we can make the final lines on top of it. And this is basically how I sketch my characters. Maybe normally I will take a little bit more time for it to do it correctly. This is how I usually draw. So I'm getting this mouth. And then here, getting this cheek. And then this ear here. And then these eyebrows. And then this hair, going down here, maybe a bit of hair here. So this is basically how and then I just keep working until I have something I like. So that was this tutorial about drawing heads. I would really recommend practicing drawing these steps. And maybe if you're starting out, try to draw these, practicing these basic shapes first. And where was that one? Yeah, I think this. Maybe practice this and draw these heads following these steps. I think that will really help you getting a better understanding of how to draw those kind of shapes. So first learn how to draw those cylinders and those cubes, and then learn to draw these kind of heads, or maybe the more basic one that I showed before this one, like with the round ball and that mask and with the neck. And then once you nail that, you can start practicing these, and maybe you can start drawing, making your own proportion versions, and so on. So I hope you like this video, and send me some of your drawings if you want some, take a look at it. I will be glad to take a look at it. And thanks for watching, and have a happy drawing. Thanks. Bye-bye.